Chapter 6. Katerina's fingers scrabbled against Rhys's shirt, the flannel soft beneath her grasp, yet suddenly an infuriating barrier. She needed skin. His skin. Now. Not even the delicious aftershocks of her first climax could dampen the raw, primal need to have him inside her. If he'd be lupine, she would have bit deep into his neck. If she wasn't careful, she still might. She reined in the impulse. Her hands fumbled with the buttons, her usually precise coordination lost to the desperate thrumming in her blood. Rhys groaned, low and deep, helping her, shrugging the fabric off his broad shoulders with a sinuous ripple of muscle and letting it fall unnoticed to the floor. His bare chest met her palms. Hot skin stretched over hard contours, the scent of him, pure male and Rhys, washing over her. Clean sweat, leather, and the faint metallic hint that always clung to him, amplified tenfold by her heightened sense of smell. She traced the lines of his collarbones, the firm planes of his pecs, her fingertips grazing his flat nipples, eliciting another sharp intake of breath from him. Her focus shifted lower, to the straining bulge outlined against the worn denim of his jeans. The button yielded easily, the zipper rasping down a heartbeat later. He jerked his hips slightly to help her shuck the jeans and boxers down over his lean hips and powerful thighs, kicking them free with a swift, impatient movement. And there he was, fully revealed, hard, magnificent. The thick, pulsing length of him stood proud from a thatch of dark curls, the flushed, smooth head already glistening at the tip. Her breath caught. He was substantial, thick and long, the sight stoking the embers inside her back into a roaring blaze, just as her pulse quickened in anticipation. The subtle ache low in her belly intensified, a physical ache echoing the emotional chasm he filled simply by existing. Rhys moved back over her, covering her body with his own, a deliberate, possessive weight that stole her breath. His knee nudged hers wider, aligning their hips. Katerina, he breathed, her name ragged and torn, vibrating against her lips where he still hovered just above. His eyes, dark with lust now, stared down into hers. Rhys, please. Her voice was a husky whisper, a command and a surrender rolled into one. She lifted her hips, arching herself towards him, seeking the pressure, the relief, the union. Don't wait. She saw him glance at a side table looking torn and guessed he was wondering about a condom. Human, wolf pregnancies were very rare and transmissible diseases rarer still. She drew him toward her. I'm using protection. It's okay. Not strictly true, but she couldn't be more accurate without also exposing herself as a lichen. A ragged groan tore from Rhys's throat as he pressed forward. The thick, blunt head of his cock nudged against her slick, swollen entrance, blunt pressure parting her tender folds. There was resistance for a brief, heart-stopping moment, the size of him stretching her deliciously, where she was still slick and sensitive from his previous ministrations. Fuck, he gritted out, his hands sliding beneath her backside, cupping her hard, tilting her hips up to change the angle. His eyes were fixed on the point where they were about to join. He sank into her slowly, agonizingly slowly, an inch of hot, hard intrusion. Her inner muscles fluttered wildly around him, a vice of slick velvet closing on that invading thickness. Fingers tightened on her hips. He moved again, another slow, deliberate thrust, sinking deeper, deeper. Katerina cried out, the sound high and fractured. Not holy pain, not just pleasure, but a raw, overwhelming sensation of being filled, stretched, claimed. Her body clamped down instinctively, trying to grip the huge intrusion even as it yielded. Her nails dug into the flesh of his shoulders. Rhys paused, buried deep within her trembling sheath. His forehead pressed against hers. God, Katerina! His voice was a wrecked rasp, Tell me it's okay. Tell me I won't hurt you." "Yes," she gasped, arching, pulling him deeper. She was stretched to the limit, alive with sensation. "Yes, more. Move, Rhys. Please, move." He obeyed. With a harsh groan, he began to move, pulling back with excruciating slowness until just the swollen head remained gripped within her, then driving forward again in a long, powerful, smooth glide. He built a relentless, grounding rhythm, deep thrusts that pushed the breath from her lungs, followed by slow, deliberate withdrawals that seemed to stretch her inner walls unbearably. He filled her completely on every downward plunge. Her entire world narrowed to the driving force of his hips, the rough slide of his skin against hers, the thick, invincible thickness piercing deep into her core. Fire ignited where they joined, spreading outwards, licking up her spine and coiling low in her belly all over again. Each thrust struck that secret, marvelously sensitive spot deep within her, sending fresh jolts of dazzling pleasure shooting through her nerves. Her cries became wordless, rhythmic sounds punctuating every thick slide into her welcoming heat. Katerina's legs wrapped around his waist, locking him into her, her heels digging into the hardening muscles at the base of his spine, urging him on. She met each thrust, lifting her hips to take him deeper still. Her hands roamed his back, claws lightly grazing his skin. The low rumble vibrating in her chest wasn't entirely human, a primal sound bubbling up despite every effort to cage her wolf. He buried his face against her neck, his breath hot and ragged. The proof of his impending loss of control was in the gritted tension of his shoulders beneath her hands, the desperate clench of his fingers gripping her hips hard enough to bruise a normal woman's skin. Her own orgasm hovered once more, swelling within the core he possessed so perfectly. She strained towards it, everything tightening deliciously around the iron-hard thickness hammering relentlessly into her. But just as the wave threatened to crash, a reckless impulse seized her. She needed to see him, needed to claim him, needed more. "Rhys!" She shoved hard against his chest. He froze instantly, pulling back far enough to look at her, chest heaving, eyes wild with question, and a desperate hunger barely held in check. "Katie, what's—" "Let me—" Her voice was raw, urgent. She pushed again harder, rolling beneath him. "On top. Let me ride you." Understanding flared in his dark eyes. He didn't hesitate. With an effort that tightened his jaw, he lifted himself off her slightly, giving her room to maneuver. She sat up, her body flowing with predatory grace that momentarily widened his eyes. He sat back, propped against the headboard. As his cock slipped free for a few agonizingly empty seconds, Katerina did not waste them. One leg swung over his hips, her knees finding purchase on either side of his torso, muscles flexing. She positioned herself above him, the thickened head brushing against her slick, swollen folds. She lowered herself slowly, deliberately, her eyes locked onto his. Her descent onto him was her own power play. She controlled the slide, controlling the exquisite burn as her tender core stretched open again to take pleasure from his prodigious thickness. Her back arched gorgeously as she gradually seated him deeper, inch by glorious, glorious inch, taking every bit of hard, throbbing male heat until their hips met. She paused then, fully sheathed, her inner walls gripping him fiercely, adapting once more to this wondrous intrusion. Both of them gasped, seated together. Then she moved. Her first rise was slow, mesmerizing, drawing herself up his shaft until only the engorged tip stretched her narrow entrance. He watched her, rapt, his hands settling heavily on the curve of her hips. She paused near the crest, rotating her hips in a slow, deliberate circle, making his cock rub deliciously deep within her slick channel. His groan was sharp, his fingers gripping hard. She fell forward then, slamming herself back down onto him, taking him to the hilt hard. Sparks exploded behind her eyes. A startled cry ripped from between her clenched lips. She rose again, slow and deliberate, relishing every inch of friction as he filled her anew. Then down again, faster, harder. And then she set her pace. She rode him with fierce, undulating power, employing every muscle accrued in centuries of unnatural life. Her hips rolled, angled. She seemed to know exactly how to slide herself along the hard shaft, stretching her, to twist her pelvis so the head scraped viciously over that impossibly sensitive place, high inside her each time she drove herself down his length. The muscles in her thighs and abdomen corded as she rose and fell, piston-like, finding the faster rhythm that overruled coherent thought. Rhys's hands slid from her hips to her breasts, his fingers finding taut nipples and rolling them hard, sending sharp starbursts of pleasure radiating through her to join the potent fire gathering below. His head dropped back against the headboard, a harsh, shuddering groan escaping him with every fierce downward thrust. He was breathing in sharp, rhythmic gasps. Katerina felt the change in him, the mounting pressure, the gathering tension in his incredible thigh muscles beneath her knees, the subtle pulsing within the intimate clasp of her body holding his. He was close, seeing him unravel, feeling him strain towards release beneath her, against her, inside her, all but begging her for release. It was her undoing. The fire inside her coiled tighter, unbearably so, fed by the sheer kinetic force of her own movements atop him. Rhys suddenly reached between them, his thumb finding the soaked, throbbing nub of her clit. One expert flick, pressing and circling the exact spot needed. It detonated her. Katerina threw her head back with a savage cry, a sound ripped from the core where the woman met the wolf, as her climax tore through her with devastating force. Her spine bowed, hips grinding hard against his as her channel convulsed around him, a series of violent rolling contractions that gripped his driving cock with crushing, rhythmically milking intensity. She called out his name. She saw the instant it triggered his release. His eyes flew open, meeting hers with an intense look as his body went rigid beneath her, his hips arching violently off the bed to drive impossibly deeper into the slick, clenching embrace of her womb. She could feel the head of his shaft slam into her cervix. Thankfully, as excited as she was, it felt amazing. The deep roar that tore from his chest was unnerving, primal. His hot release flooded inside her in great pulsing bursts as he spilled himself deep inside her. She felt each distinct throb against her deepest spasming walls as explosive heat mixed with the essence of their desperate union. The aftershocks kept rocking through her long after his essence had spilled hotly deep inside. For long moments, Katerina rode it out, her body still shuddering with the exquisite pulses where they remained joined. Eventually, she collapsed forward, resting her damp forehead against his chest, feeling the racketing, guttural thud of his slowing heartbeat beneath her ear. His arms wrapped around her, holding her tight against him, anchoring her as the world slowly swam back into focus, beyond the diminishing sparks and echoes firing off languidly through her overwrought nerves. They stayed like that, tangled and breathing hard, while the city lights blinked silently outside the rain-streaked glass. Finally, the silence was broken by the hungry growl of her stomach. Rhys rolled over on his back and let out such a genuine, heart-warming guffaw that Katerina knew she was well and truly sunk. She didn't just want to fuck the living daylights out of Rhys Morgan, she genuinely liked him too.